of 4,500 CEOs surveyed said that they're seeing full ROI, so increased revenue and decreased costs from use of AI. And PwC have referred to this as the defining divide between winners and those kind of like slow adoption entities. So we're really thinking today about how our mission at Pencil aligns with the way that we can help to push our clients into that 12% vanguard and really get into valuable transformational ROI from particularly agentic AI. Now, I think as ever, we're going to start with some questions from you to me, Will.
Yep, let's do it. So questions to you, Tim, as always, are through the lens of your experience as our head of education. So spending all of your time with users, I'm really interested to get into some aspects of this gap that the PwC report has identified. So let's start with the 12% number, given how stark that looks on the face of it, right? So 12% of CEOs are saying that they are the ones embedding AI extensively into their products and demand gen. So in your training sessions, are you seeing marketers move past just chatting with an AI and somehow building it more deeply into their daily production line in order to get to that ROI point?
I think it's been a really interesting curve. So, I mean, I've been with Pencil a couple of years, and the journey that our clients have been on in that time has been huge. So we've gone from a lot of clients focusing on asset production and purely asset production, text or images that they then take out of the Pencil workflow into their more traditional methods. And that's going to have its limitations. That is, sure, an efficiency on one level. It's not transformational. What we're seeing now, though, and I think it's with broader awareness of AI, it's with leaps and bounds forwards in the technology as well. And then with the ways that we've worked much more integrated flows into our platform, is that clients are coming in much more ready to plot out a whole process, plot out a whole workflow. And I'm not just talking individual work production workflows. I'm talking their big picture workflow through their entire marketing process and how AI can assist with every part of that. Where that's most powerful now is that we're seeing teams creating concepts with Pencil in mind and really starting to harness things like sheets and feeds with real intentionality. And I think we've gone from a point where we were leading the customer, really going in training sessions to use this, use that, to customers coming to us and saying, how can I implement this, and this using AI, which has really led us to this point of being able to enable soon to launch workflows.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Clients using language like implementation rather than experimentation is something that we've seen a marked difference in over the last kind of 18 months.
Yeah.
And, there's an assumption there, by the way, in that 12% of winners who are seeing ROI, that efficiency is the first thing that you can measure from the return perspective. And it is, right? But I'd love to get on also in the conversation to other means of generating a return with AI, not just efficiency, reinvesting those efficiency gains in growth, right? So if we move on to question 2 here, and parking those folks that are focused on implementation and are starting to see ROI on efficiency, and getting to those folks, more than half, right, who are saying, of CEOs who are saying that they see zero financial benefit yet, and who are often stuck in pilot purgatory, right? They're still in the experimentation phase and they haven't got to implementation. Why do we think they're stuck in pilot purgatory? Is it because they're using too many different tools that are too disconnected? Is it a mindset thing? Is it something else, right?
Yep.
So what is Pencil's kind of tool not replacement philosophy? You know, how do you think that has a bearing on tool selection,
Mhm.
and help avoid, brands getting stuck in this kind of pilot purgatory zone?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two things that I'd say on this note. One, maybe I shouldn't be questioning these fantastic CEOs surveyed by PwC. I don't believe that at this point in time, more than half of them aren't seeing some level of tangible ROI from AI. I think part of this comes down not only to plotting and planning your process of implementation, but a lot of what's being missed in implementation is how you triangulate return on investment. Um, I think there are probably financial benefits there that just aren't being perceived as deriving from AI. And I think there might be certain preconceptions that companies have before buying into AI about what the ROI is going to come from. And those preconceptions might not always be right. Coming back to your actual question, though, I think there's a real need for intentionality during adoption. And I'm finding increasingly, I'm saying the word intentionality throughout my training sessions. I'm not even sure if it's a word, but I use it on a daily basis. It's really understanding, right, why are we implementing AI? We've gone from a point where companies were implementing AI because it was new and a buzzword to what are the benefits I want to derive? What are the steps that are going to get me there? And how do humans interact with AI to get us there? And if you're a company with a really powerful creative voice, for example, that intentionality is how do you get the most out of your brilliant creative people using AI? It's how do you take the drudge work away from them so they can focus on pure creative concepts. Likewise, that's not every company's kind of MO. Sometimes it is about like localization and scale, in which case your intention and the way that you're going to derive benefit is going to be very different. It's going to come from planning out, here are my hundreds of local markets that all have different needs. How is AI going to speak to really specific user concerns? How are we going to really fine tune our targeting? And then again, how do we measure the benefit coming back up from that?
I love the connection that you're making there implicitly to the culture of the organization that's doing the AI transformation, because it speaks to the organization's strengths, its weaknesses, its focus areas, its priorities.
Yeah.
I've had CMOs tell me that they know that there is value in AI because they use it. They use it for their kids' birthday
Yeah.
cards. They use it for Christmas cards, right? So they know that it's there. But applying that to a complex organization means considering things like culture to make sure that you make progress. I think part of this is also at the CEO level, any measurement has to be very scaled to reach their desk. So even though there might be successes on a project level or whatever the case may be, the CEO is going to say,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing ROI, especially given the investment, sometimes large, unless the return is also very large, right? So
Mhm.
maybe I'll throw the ball back to you for some questions on, I see you've got some here on measurement of ROI.
Yep. So let's go with part of what was in this survey was that CEOs are finding that costs are increasing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they might be deriving benefit, but it's not outweighing that kind of like investment friction.
Mm-hmm.
What's Pencil doing to reduce cost of entry so that that increased cost, but no growth or little growth in revenue isn't happening for our clients?
Yeah, this is a great question. So we started pricing Pencil using a tool, a pricing tool, which is essentially a business casing tool quite early on. So we never give a customer a price to implement without also modeling out the return. So it starts way up front. Even before we get to the kind of commercial discussions, we volunteer to have an upfront discussion with the client about the ROI, right? So on the left side of this tool is your return. So
Mhm.
how much do you spend on marketing? How much do you spend making assets? If you did that this much more efficiently, how much would you save? And then on the right hand side, you have the technology you need to invest in, scoped to the volume of work that you're going to be producing. You have services, which is a team dedicated to managing that program and the accountability of the return on the investment. And then sometimes dedicated delivery teams who will work with you to use the tooling and not just teach you and your other agency partners, for example, how to use the tooling. So those are two explicitly different teams. And by putting it all on one page like that, it starts the conversation around what are we trying to do here very early on. It makes sure the investment is right sized against the potential return very early on. And it basically immediately gets you out of pilot purgatory, because you're having a discussion about what if we were using AI everywhere, every brand, every market, every agency partner, for everything. What would that get us? And even that is only act one, right? The efficiency piece. Then you can have an interesting discussion, about if you are able to achieve these efficiencies, how are you going to reinvest that for growth, and what's the role of AI in that as well. So that's how we do it. We found that to really, land well, and it just sets everybody off on an exciting path, I think, much earlier than doing a random pilot.
And I mean, I give a shout out here to our great enablement teams who are doing a really good job of consulting with clients and helping to build these frameworks. Something I found really interesting in the survey results was that for those CEOs who are seeing the results, there was a recognizable pattern in their responsible use of AI and having like guardrails and systems in place. So how does Pencil support with that?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because caring about those things suggests that the CEO or the leadership team behind this transformation is thinking implementation. If you're thinking pilot, you're not thinking that far down the road, right?
Yeah.
So it speaks to conviction. I had a great client, one of our earliest adopters, ask, what do we look for in clients undergoing these kinds of projects with us? And I said conviction. You know that this is the future, you know that this is the way that you want to go. Therefore, you have deeply considered how it changes your business, how it changes your relationships with your partners, how it changes what your employees are going to do. And you've considered that from an ethical and moral perspective and not just an operational perspective. So first of all, I love when clients ask questions like that, because it suggests that they are high conviction. Then to answer your question, it comes into what can we do in the product to give them reassurance on those questions in the same way we give them reassurance around other questions like model aggregation, for example, which are largely commercial operational. So to give you, one example, one of the earliest set of challenges or kind of ethical moral questions clients had was around bias inherent in models, right? So we built and shipped a feature called Bias Breaker, which doesn't attempt to change how the underlying models are trained. Obviously, we can't control that, and there are lots of models out there that are coming out all the time. But what it does do is it intercepts the prompt that the user makes and rolls the dice and makes the prompt more diverse and then passes it to the model. And we give the enterprise clients the ability to control that roll of dice to create the kind of diversity that they want to see. And it's an example of how you can kind of productize a solution to a classic hesitance question or a problem. And there are examples like that throughout the product, whether it's reinforcing licenses associated with assets that the clients are using, filtering prompts so that people can't type in problematic things in the first place, it gets rejected. There's all kinds of great examples where once you start talking implementation with high conviction, you can design solutions.
Absolutely. And I think it's what users want as well. I think users can tell the difference between well implemented, ethical, planned AI and slop, for want of a better word. And it's those companies, the ones that are doing everything you've just said, that are really getting those high performance results that resonate with users. Now we are at time. I could have talked to you for an extra 3 hours on this. But I think what I want to just end with is, I think for both of us, our takeaway from the PwC report is not that AI is failing. There are some exaggerated attention grabbing headlines that might seek to imply that for various reasons. But this really is a bit of a honeymoon phase of experimentation being over, implementation starting, and that takes the hard graft. And what we're seeing is that the companies that are implementing properly are seeing results. That 12% is proof that when done well, when done with intentionality, this works. And Pencil is really committed to getting that right for our clients, helping them through the tools capabilities, helping them through our company's capabilities, so that we've got AI implemented as a tool, not a replacement, but a very, very effective tool. Do you have any final words, Will, before we wrap?
No, just to say thanks, Tim, for another great conversation, and thanks to all who tune in to listen to us chat about these things. It may be that we do this more often, less often, longer, shorter. So please, leave us feedback wherever you're watching, and we'll try and respond to what folks want to hear about as we learn from working with our clients on the ground with this stuff. But thanks again, Tim, and thanks again to everyone tuning in.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. See you soon.